Okay. So, hi, my name is Andy Day. I'm the founder and CEO of Capital A, and welcome to our weekly M&A Q&A. This week we have Richard Waddington with us, who's the founder and former CEO of First Protocol, which is now known as the First Agency. Richard exited First Protocol business and started an investment and consulting business, Knoll Management, where he's made several investments into agencies and tech businesses. So he has and does also sit on boards as a chairman. He was on the board of a company called Pure Communication for several years and is currently the chairman for micebook.com, which is also a business that he's invested in. And he's the chairman of the Event Marketing Association, or EMA, so very busy chap. Richard's got a fair bit of experience in M&A himself and was certainly integral to my own M&A beginnings in the event agency world, where he introduced me to several people. And also pointed at things to go and explore. Richard, how are you doing?
Thanks very much, Andy. Very well, thank you. Bit pulling my hair out at the moment. As this time of year, I should be on the ski slopes in Chamonix, and very, very frustrated.
I believe you caught COVID on Chamonix, didn't you?
Last year, coming back, yeah, that's what I got.
Were you one of the super spreaders?
No, I was No, God, I was quite ill with it for about 3 weeks, but really sort of felt it on the chest.
Feeling okay now?
No, certainly know what it was about, but yeah, very frustrating. Anyway, we're getting there. There is a light at the end of the tunnel.
It's getting there. We'll go into a bit of detail about the events business later on, which you're obviously an expert in.
Yeah.
Well. But first of all, Richard, we're going to kick off with a quick background check on you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background? I'd be really interested to know how you first started in the events world and how you initiated First Protocol and then built that business up.
Oh, wow. Okay. How long have we got?
Long story.
Well, I'll kick off by sort of saying at school and educationally wise, I was a bit of a renegade. I later found out that, I'm dyslexic and also have a attention deficit disorder, and found school and educating very, very frustrating, very slow, played about, messed about, wasn't a good boy. But I did at the age of 14 get into the hotel industry. So I was working weekends and evenings and stuff like that, and absolutely loved it because I loved interacting with people, and I liked hard work and I liked money. And I also found out that I became an entrepreneur at school because I ran the school tuck shop. And I also ran ice skating trips from Malvern to Birmingham to the Silver Blade and charged kids so much. I was making like 20 quid a week doing ice skating trips. So there's that proverbial, you find out later on in life, that sort of instinctive entrepreneurship, not scared of hard work, not scared of taking risks, not scared of just going for it. And if it fails, you pick yourself up and you have another go. But basically, I went into the hotel industry straight after school. I did a year at college, hated that. My father was trying to get me into accountancy or banking, which is what he was involved with in Worcester. When I say banking, I mean high street banking, not international banking. And got into the hotel industry. And again, loved it and got promoted up through that to a couple of different hotels around the Midlands. And then when I was the ripe old age of 20, moved to London with a couple of friends from Coventry who were all chefs, funny enough. And we moved down here and started, working different places. And my first job was at the Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange, but running or assistant manager to the members bar and dining rooms and hospitality. So that's kind of when I started then getting into the high-end events and hospitality business, but ended up then going to work for a big company, or a small company, a broking company called Ackroyd & Smithers, which became eventually part of Warburgs and UBS. And I ended up with a job running all of their private dining rooms and everything else following Big Bang. I then got headhunted and went to going to work for Lord Rothschild and set up Spencer House for him, which was the ancestral townhouse of the Spencer family. So Diana, mixed with lots of royals, G7s, very, very, very grand events. Again, loved it. What I kind of cured is this whole thing within me, which was always about quality and wanting to be the best, and it always sort of was in me and instilled in me. And even going to something like Spencer House, it was like that's what I has to be the best there is, and that's what it was. And then quickly then I was approached. So now all of a sudden I'm in the age of sort of 35 now. And in 95, I was approached by a client I met, MasterCard, lady global head of sponsorship for MasterCard, who asked me to go and work for her and set up their events around Euro 96 sponsorship, which was in the UK, which I took a big risk. I jumped ship, I had a very good job, very good life, living. We had a daughter, 5 years old, so a lot of risk for a year's contract. My wife nearly killed me over, but that was that opportunity. I jumped and the net appeared, and that's how I started the business. We delivered Euro 96 for MasterCard. I brought a bunch of people together as a consultant. We delivered some amazing things for them, which they were over the moon with. And they then asked me to go and work for them. I said, no, I want to create my own business. This is what I'm doing. They said, okay, but for the next, again, then they said, for the next sort of year, you only work for us and we do World Cup in France. So kind of, we set up a contract and we grew the agency, but I got the contract to do World Cup in France, and then the business just grew and grew, and that was the start of First Protocol. Over the following then 20 odd years, I grew that from an agency of a couple of people to agency with 160 people, with 8 offices in 4 countries around the world, and eventually was did a management buyout. So that was in my exited FP in December 2012.
So that's a massive amount of growth. And during that, were you taking on board any investment? Did it grow organically? How
no, it was all growing organically. I had some initial investment right at the beginning, with a couple of guys that I sort of had met or knew of, and we bought some of them out. We kept one of them in, and in fact, Peter's he remained the chair of the business. Now is the chair of the business, Peter Godfrey. But yeah, it was very much, sort of grew and grew the business.
It'd be interesting to know then, because some of the guys here probably, are fairly early on in their careers, how you attracted those investors into First Protocol. Did they come to you? Because it sounds like you were mixing with the rich and the famous already.
In fact, they did come to me. What had happened, again, is I had never done any of this before. No, I hadn't got a clue about setting up a business, creating a business, or anything like that. And the MasterCard deal, at the end of the MasterCard, sort of Euro 96, I was called to a meeting with Debbie and then her boss, who was the sort of CMO. And they said, we want you to come back and work for us, and we want you to do World Cup in France. We want you to do, we're going into Formula One. And we want you to create a standard of events and hospitality across all of our brands and businesses, across the MasterCard event. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want you to be a client, but I want to do it on my own. And they said, okay, fine. And that's kind of got that sort of that big break. But then I realized I needed to grow the business quickly, and I needed a bit of money. And one of the guys that I met is Peter Godfrey. I met him during the Euros, and he was at that time I could say president, but it wasn't quite his title, but he was head of Midland Bank, which is now HSBC, of course, Midland Bank Credit Card Services. So he was one of MasterCard's clients in the UK, and I'd met him at some of the UK matches, and he got chatting to me and said, what are you doing? So need any help, come and speak to me. I thought he meant about the bank investing, and he didn't. It was him and a couple of his mates. But I also went to Lord Rothschild, my old boss. This is a funny story. And I explained to Lord R that I had this opportunity. I wanted to do this, and I was looking for, I think I said to him, £100,000 worth of investment. And literally, I sat down in his meeting room with him, and we had 2 of his other guys with him. And basically, Jacob said, Richard, you think you did marvelous jobs, and he helped me during Euro 96. So again, keeping contacts is really important. I was able to reach out to Lord Rothschild and ask him for some advice and touch on some of the stuff that he gave me. But he said, we don't invest on anything under 5 million. But I'll write you out a check personally. I'll invest. And I didn't take his investment. I took the other people's investment because they were offering a bit more mentorship and a bit more accounting back end. We'll look after your back office. We'll do this, that, and the other. So no regrets on all of that, but it was quite funny. I mean, yeah, my naivety asking Rothschild to invest 100 grand into something. And
So maybe a little, your first piece of advice might be that it's good to always think bigger, I suppose.
yeah. I could have asked for a lot. Yeah. No, I think my advice on that though is about your networks and your contacts. It's all about looking to build them and to respect them, and you can call on people. I mean, I was able to. One of the big things we did with Euro '96 for Mastercard, we created. Everyone's heard of Party in the Park, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Big concerts in Hyde Park each summer. Well, Mastercard concert was the first one. So in '96 there was a concert in Hyde Park. It had not been done for. The previous concert to that was Rolling Stones in '66. And that was Mastercard Masters of Music. And I came up with that idea. I was able to make it happen by being able to contact and use that. Basically, I was able to get to the Prince's Trust through Lord Rothschild's office and asked for an introduction. He got me that introduction, and that was the start of that history.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good claim to fame. I've seen the Stones in Hyde Park, so it's thanks to you probably, because I think it was still Mastercard then.
Yeah.
So it's a great sort of founding story. You've almost fell into it by accident. You've come through, quite a sort of convoluted way to get to start an agency. But I think one of the things that stands out is that you always wanted to be in charge of your own destiny. So
very much.
Pretty much everybody here will recognise that in themselves as well. So if you were to do that again from scratch, it sounds like you've got no regrets, which is great, but obviously most people wouldn't start out a business thinking about how to build that business so it could be bought out, or particularly sort of as a management buyout either. But what would you give anyone who's starting out building their own agency or restarting? We've got some people that have already sold businesses and looking to build an agency group again. What would you suggest to them in terms of how to build that business so that they can exit the best way possible? Because obviously you did quite a cool thing actually, is to get your own management team to buy you out of your business as well. So
I mean, the thing that I had at that point is from right from the beginning, early stage, how I now talk to young entrepreneurs or people that want to start their business, and one of the things I look for is, what do you want to achieve? And to me, there's two types of business. There's somebody who wants a lifestyle business. So they kind of say, I want to earn enough money for me to live comfortably on, and for me to be able to do this, and that. But the most important to me is my personal lifestyle and how much I've got in my pot and what I'm going to do with this and everything else. So, and that person could either just be self-employed or could employ 4 or 5 people. But that's kind of where their passion is, and there's millions of those around the country, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Or there's somebody who says, I want to grow a business and I want to build a business, and a business of value and asset value. So one day I could, during that journey, I can earn a nice living from it, but at the end of the day, that company is going to be worth 2, 5, 20, 50, 100 million, and that's what I'm building for. To sell that business, to exit that business. But it's kind of one trying to work out the individuals and what they what they say, but what they mean can be two different things. But it's that to me was always the thing, and I was always the one that felt right at the beginning, I want to build something of value. And part of that was, it was not purely about money, but I also learned to use money as a measurement, but not as a driver. But it was also, I really believe in, when I look back on the whole thing about, ego, and, I wanted something to be big enough to be recognized, to think, wow, that's what I did. And I think part of that probably was trying to prove my dad wrong, who I loved dearly and everything else, but I frustrated him so much as a kid, because my dad worked really hard himself to get his education, because he was a very clever man. But here was this kid who absolutely frustrated him with with totally going against education, should we say.
And do you think, because that's a really interesting point, that there's those two types of businesses, but do you think everybody knows at the start that it's that? Were you always very clear that you wanted to build something, or do you think everybody
No,
understands?
I don't think you really probably know it, but it's quite good to ask the question or to be asked the question, because I think part of that also drives your thinking. And you're quite simply. I mean, in fact, I did it today on a call today, talking to somebody who wants to have a business, and I said, "So, what's your objectives?" "Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that." "No, what's your objective?" And he's like, "What do you mean? What's your objective?" And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, do you want to earn 200,000 a year, or do you want to earn 10 million in 5 years?" So yeah, right, put a number on something. Now let's work back from the answer of, is that doable? Is that achievable? How would you do that? And I think there's a great way of aligning business strategy to numbers, but I think it's really important that numbers aren't the driver, but people have got to have, if you're clear in your mind that your objective is to really make something financially, then you've got to work out your plan to grow to align to that.
Okay, that's brilliant advice, that. Yes, it's one we can all think about, I think.
But especially if you're looking for investors, because at the end of the day, as an investor, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not here to fluff up your pillows and pay for your lifestyle. I want an exit.
There you go. So you've almost answered the next question. So I was going to ask you, tell us in more detail about your first investment, in fact. So obviously you exited your business. There was a management buyout.
Yeah.
We won't go into too much detail. I'm sure that's all private, but you exit the business, and then you set up this new business, Knoll Management, where you're an investor and advisor to other agency businesses. But what was that first investment that you made? What were you looking for when you went out with this fresh pile of cash? What were you looking for to invest, and what was the drivers for you at that point?
Well, what I will say is and I'll come back to it, my first investment was totally off strategy. Okay. So first of all, my strategy was that, I worked with my IFA, who's also a good friend, and we got my pot of money and we divided it into property and investments, and I pumped up my pension fund, and so managing that into different things. And I also said, okay, I'm 55. I don't want to work full time in a business. I realized I did not want to start a new business of my own. But what I would like to do is be an angel investor and mentor, advisor, non-exec direct. And I wanted to sort of create a portfolio of activities. And so we set a play pot, should we say, to the side, and that was mine. If it went, it wouldn't kill me. Might mean we fly coach instead of business class. But fortunately, we're still at the front. But that was sort of basic strategy. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to invest in anything, I'm going to invest in my industry, my sector, because that's what I know and I love, and that's where I can add value. Yeah. So that was my strategy.
So what did you invest in then? Because
fashion business.
Good man.
So I met somebody at a dinner. Great little business called Table Talk, Kate, and she brings people and entrepreneurs, investors together and stuff like that. Anyway, she introduced me to Silk Fred, which is a fashion label predominantly for females. Well, it was both, but it's now all females. But I met Kate. She'd already started the business. They'd already had their first round of investment. They were doing another round for about 250K. And I absolutely saw the idea, what she was putting together, which was a marketplace of all small independent designers across the country, and then centralizing their marketing sales for them. Very simple, but very good. But I also, what I like is her. So when you got to go into what do you want in an investor? But I love the idea. I love the business. I thought, yes, I can see that working. But I also really bought into her and a couple of fellow directors, and thought, they really know what they're talking about. They thought this through. They've got the numbers. They've got the thing. They've got the projections. So I, put a small investment into that. All their business plan that they put together was shot out the window because everything's gone up and down. It's like they've never achieved they have achieved what they've said they would achieve, but in a very different way to what their business plan said. It's going great. It's really good business. It's definitely one day I really do believe it's going to give me a 15 to 20 times investment return.
Wow.
I know it's already up to, the last round they did, I was on 12 times return. So
Wow.
they've took investment on, they've now got a PE involved, so it's doing really well. They've been approached a few times to be acquired. They've turned that down. They were going to float last year, and they pulled back from that at the moment. But yeah.
Sounds like a good solid investment despite going off.
Yeah, get it, but it was gut. It was kind of gut instinct, balanced off with looking at the numbers, looking at the plan, understanding, listening to them.
It sounds like the investment was in them as a team, which I think is probably what a lot of investors look for anyways. They're looking for that driving force to be really, really good. But since you made that investment, sorry, go on.
Yeah. Again, two things. You can have a business plan, a great idea and a great plan, and you've got great people. If you've got a great idea and a great plan, but shit people, it ain't going to work.
Right. So those are the three things you're looking for.
And it could be a good idea and a good plan with brilliant people. It will work. You get the two together, great and great. So a great quote of Jim Collins, good to great. So yeah.
You keep stealing my next questions. So since making that initial investment, so obviously you were very knowledgeable, I suppose, in what would make a good business, and you spotted that early on. But since making that first investment, I think you've made more around the events industry and agencies and tech businesses. But what are you looking for now when you're sort of weighing up what looks like a fairly reasonable, decent investment for you to make? What is it that sort of swings you towards actually pushing the button on an investment? What's some of the things that might put you off, maybe?
Well, they've got to have done good thinking. There's got to be a good idea out there. You've got to be able to see and visualize. And again, I'm a very visual person, so I've got to be able to visualize this idea, this journey. And they've got to have done the reasoning behind it. They've got to have looked at the market, the competition. They've got to be able to tick all the boxes that sort of say, yes, yeah, get it. And they've got to have shown their due diligence in everything that they've done. They've then got to prove and show that they are the people to do this. So you've got to pick up on, have they really got the passion to do this? Are they willing to make those commitments to do it? I look back on myself and think, when I said I was working 70, 80, 90 hours a week, all weekends and evenings, I used to drive people mad with sending stuff or wanting to be on this. I traveled the world through work, which was great. But, today we were bringing up our, we only got one daughter, but bringing her up, I remember packing her off to school. I think her first day at school when she was 5. Next time I think I saw her, she was 16 or 17. Well, that's how it felt, I missed so many birthday parties, so many, and that's very, very selfish and everything else. But fortunately, my wife was brilliant, and she would just get on with everything. Never got that hassle. So again, I think that's really important. Of that, do they have the support? Do you have the support around you to be able to, do that?
Right, so quite a lot of things outside what you would expect, really, that you're looking for. It's not just a good idea and a good person, but actually whether they've got the
are they willing to put it ahead of everything else in their life?
Right.
That idea, that business, because you kind of have to do it now. There's so many great ideas out there, and so many people looking for investment.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great environment because there's so many things to invest in, like you say. And a lot of investors out there as well. And it's, I think, from the point of view of the guys that are on this call, they're looking to build businesses and looking for investors as well. So there's so many out there, and it's good to actually have somebody who's a real investor in that seat as well. Can you talk us through like the structures of the deals that you do? So if you find something that you want to invest in, do you genuinely go in first as like the sort of first seed round or the angel investment? Or, are you doing bigger investments than that? And if you do this, the sort of smaller angel stuff, are you looking to take a stake in the business? And how can you talk us through how that works?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a sort of multiple of different things because different, some money I've invested in through just the EIS, and I put some money in through oh god, trying to think of the platform now. One was oh my god, it's gone from me. Sorry, it'll come to me in a minute. But one of the funding groups.
It's not Crowdcube, is it?
No, not that one. Oh my god, it's just it'll come in a minute. But yeah, I put some money in that, and they did the EIS investment. I've invested in a couple of companies through them directly. So you go to those angel presentation groups and you use that to do that. They've done quite a bit of the due diligence and everything else prior to bringing it to the table. I put money into a fund that they run, and they do that and they manage that, and you still get your EIS. And then other stuff is now in reality people are reaching out just through LinkedIn, and I'm trying to slow down on some of the stuff that I've
How do you feel about that, Richard, when people reach out to you? Because I think a lot of people are put off by doing it because it feels a bit spammy, and obviously some of it is.
No, I think if someone's out there is interested, but what I hate is someone you get a click and said, I'd like to join your LinkedIn. I don't know you from Adam, so I just say no. But I've done some research. If you leave me a note, I've done some research. I've got an idea. I'd love to share. Whatever. Give me a reason why you want to reach out to link into me, and then I might entice me in.
So you don't mind LinkedIn? That's good.
No, I don't mind. It's like I'm kind of part of that. Andy, what I do is I'm happy to. I'm a proverbial networker, so if someone's trying to start something, I'm sitting at home and instead of watching the telly or doing a bit of gardening, having a cup of tea or out on the bike, I'm happy to have a chat with somebody and sort of say, well, have you thought about this? Have you looked at that? So I have looked, probably would take last year, I would say I looked at 30 presentation decks and just gave people advice.
Right.
It's like, just have you thought about this? Have you thought about
it? It doesn't hurt to approach investors.
No, well, that's your sales thing, isn't it? If you're going to get told to bugger off many times, but if one person says, "Yeah, I'll have a call with you," that could be that golden dust for you.
What are you looking to get back out of your investors and investment? Because obviously, it sounds like you're not actually in it for the money as much as.
Oh, I am. Don't dream.
Okay. So,
absolutely in it for the money.
All right. I'll see you later. I had a question about you being. Okay, so you're in it for the money, but you're looking to get something out of it for your soul as well, by the sounds of it, because you're obviously free to give all of that advice out. So.
Yeah, we're happy to do that, but that's again just part of that process of learning and helping other people and everything else. So, but if I'm going to invest in something, then I am absolutely looking for a multiple return on that investment. I try and sort of work out what that risk is. I've invested in, let's say, 10 companies in the last few years, and 4 at the moment have gone bust. 3 of them are doing sweet FA. 2 or 3 of them have that potential. So there's always that balancing out of what's going to work, what's not going to work. You take that risk.
That's not a bad result, actually, 30%. So it's pretty good.
Well, let's hope, shall we?
So I'm just going to ask you next, what, in your experience, how would you advise somebody that's looking for investment for M&A? Because I know you didn't actually take on board any investment yourself to build your business. But lots of businesses now are growing through M&A, particularly because it's sort of easy to, I suppose, to sort of snap businesses up and bolt them on, particularly sort of tech stuff that gives you sort of different expertise. But how would you advise somebody to raise investment for M&A? I'm just going to add a little thing to that is we were on a panel once before together, and you mentioned mezzanine debt as well, which we spoke to a few different experts on these Q&As, and nobody's actually mentioned that before. So if you can give us a little bit about mezzanine debt, or how you would sort of think about raising investment for M&A. What would you?
Yeah. Okay. So there's many ways to do it, of course. But if you're looking to raise some debt, there's a number of businesses to do it. And the company that they used to be a big client, that was called Mezzanine Finance, which was CIT, which were a big US bank. but they specialized in lending money for businesses to buy businesses, but big businesses, or buy aircraft, as a matter of fact, and loans against assets, which was predominantly what that was. But funny enough, I read an article yesterday, and I can't remember which paper it was from or whatever, but it was about a new company that is around for lending money for M&A, and they've talked about M&A. I'll find it for you, and then I'll send it to you. But different ways of growing your business through acquisition, and how to raise finance around that. So you can go to your bank; they'll probably tell you where to go.
They want your house for it.
Yeah, exactly. But there's funding groups that will help more. So people like Rockpool are very good at that. They've lent money in the creative services sector. So there's a couple of those companies that will do that.
Rockpool's a private equity business, isn't it?
Yeah, and so quite a few of those sort of VCs, PEs do have funds to do that. Have said, okay, well, we'll use some of our money at high interest, because at the end of the day, that's what it's going to be. If you're looking, because of the high risk without loan, to do that. Some of them will do, okay, it's a debt financing, which is secured against asset. Some will say it's a debt that we can flip into equity if you don't tick certain boxes or get to a certain point. They're always generally going to want a seat at the board. They maybe want to adjust voting rights. Depends on what the percentages are that you're looking to raise and where that business sits within its growth. I mean, if, the bigger you already are, the easier it is to borrow money.
Yeah.
So, my old agency, I know that, they've been able to raise like 5 million in debt to do.
Yeah, they've made several acquisitions, I think, haven't they?
Yeah. So they've got it, the business is at a size now it can do that. Whereas when I first did it, everything else, I did borrow some money, which was a cash flow and everything else. And like you rightly said, that had to be secured against my house.
Wow.
And everything else. But now, so that, there's many different ways of doing it. I think that would be about, keeping an eye on the papers, reading, doing it. So I didn't know that question was coming up because I was in a bit of research and come up with some more solutions, but I can certainly send you something which you can share.
Yeah, we've got a sort of forum where we can share that in like a private members one.
Yeah. The peer-to-peer, I was doing peer-to-peer lending. I've done a bit of that. I was using a platform called Thin Cats, and a lot of the lending there was from M&As.
Right.
So people looking to borrow money to buy out their existing shareholders or to buy another business. And they had to go through a due diligence process with a finance advisor to do the numbers. But as a lender, you'd get like anything between 8 and 12% return on that debt.
Right. Okay, cool. So I think what's interesting about your answer as well is that there isn't one answer either.
No.
It's basically finding finance can often be several different pots of money and putting them all together at the right time, rather than just finding one pot of money.
Yeah, I'm sure, and there's brokers that'll go out there and do that for you and bring that together. The crowdfunding, and the crowdfunding you can crowdfund for debt, all right? You can, but they'll want to secure it against something generally. A lot of builders use crowdfunding groups. They're acquiring a building or an old house or a couple of old houses. They're going to knock them down and build a block of flats. They need to raise, half a million. They're putting, which the bank won't lend them, strangely enough, but crowdfunding will, and it's secured against the site. Right. So that's the problem. A lot of time, they want to see something they can secure against. Now, if you've got kit, if you've got venue, if you've got this, that's easy. But if you're selling creative services, there's a very little asset to put anything against.
But I think also it sounds like it's an interesting route for some to explore. I think we've got very varied agencies here. So
Yeah, I can find that article.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different route. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, because I think this is also interesting for our members here, is that you've been chairman of several companies now. And there might be people here that are on the call that are looking for board members or non-execs and chairman and that sort of thing. Can you tell us a little bit about what a chairman brings to a business and having a chairman on their board, or even non-execs and board members, and how do you select businesses that you would be willing to get involved in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much one for forget the titles and everything else. It's like, okay, you're a non-exec director or an advisor or a mentor, and it's what's important for me from that point of view is not my job to tell you what to do with your business and what journey that you should be on. It's very much about advising you on asking the questions. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Think about the speed that you want the business to travel at. Have you done your due diligence? Ask the questions, why, what, how, to make that person think a little bit. And also just to help steer them and be there. You know, sometimes it's going to be, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. I'm thinking about this, I'm seeing this in the market, what do you think? It's about helping you or the business put more structure to the process of your growth.
Richard, how does that relationship work? So if somebody was to come to you, I mean, it's fairly normal to pay like a monthly fee, isn't it, to a board member? So can you just talk us through that, how it would work?
Well, my process has always been that, you know, look at a business, meet an individual, and the first thing I sort of ask them questions, okay, where are you in the business, in your business planning? And there's an EY process, I think it's seven points that they've developed, and I kind of use that methodology, and I ask the questions around, okay, finances, people, strategy, you know, all those sort of structures, what have you got in place? And if it's kind of like too loose, I say, okay, the first thing I'll do is I'll come in and I'll audit that for you, which will help you develop your plan for the future, and I'll help you build your plan. All right, and that's a 3 to 6 month agreement, and that's that first. But then after that plan, if you want me to stay on and I want to stay on, then we can develop that. But I think the most important thing is to have audited the business of where it is and to have a plan. So a lot of people are asking for, you know, they're growing, they feel they need a non-exec, they need someone to come in, which they probably do, but they don't kind of have a plan. They don't see what that where is that business going to be in 5, 7 years time? How are you going to get to it? So what I would do is I'm coming in to help them build that plan. The first thing they've got to do is have the foundation solid, and you've got to have the culture, you know, the brand and everything in place, and that's built around some strong foundations.
Right, and so having somebody like yourself involved, obviously that helps with planning the business and growing. Would that help with investors as well if they saw they had a chairman in place or non-execs?
Yeah, because you know, that person will bring a certain level of kudos to the business if they've got knowledge and experience, and that's part of your job as a non-exec chair is, you know, governance. It's a very big part of your role, is making sure the company is doing things legally, correctly, and, you know, thinking financial reporting, financial management, risk management, you know, that you're putting that discipline into the business.
Okay. So I think it's something we've not really talked about this before, but I think it's a really good thing for these guys to think about when they're building their businesses up, to have somebody like you, and I'm sure you would offer them advice one-to-one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy to have those phone calls.
So just look,
a bottle of wine, a good one.
Red or white, Richard? Sparkling or still? So just finally, because we've actually had a really good chat and run for a bit longer.
Yeah, we've got to the time already.
We've got a few minutes left. So just tell us a little bit about the investments that you have got. So I know about my book, so maybe the others, we want to learn a little bit more about that.
Some I can talk about, some I can't.
Yeah, exactly. We've heard about Silk Thread. So if you tell us,
some have worked, some haven't worked. but no, that you know, to me, that there's investments that you make which I'm not involved in, and so they're just in there. And then there's businesses you get involved with. I do like to be involved in my investments. I'm not involved in all of them, but the ones I am involved with, I don't want to interfere. It's kind of, I'm here for you. Have you thought about this? So try and just get people to put structure around meetings and stuff. But I think the important thing on the other side about investments is people go bouncing into, I think the key thing is when you're looking for investment is, my company's worth $1 million. Yeah, how, why? Oh, and everyone starts off with $1 million for some reason.
They want to be a millionaire.
Yeah. And so I think if you're pitching to investors, is think about what they want, what they're looking for, and what they're hearing, and what you're saying. And I think, Andy, you and I might have had this conversation a couple of years ago, but it's an idea that I put forward to a couple of people, and it kind of grates with the business, but I've turned a couple of investments from stuff that I was going to walk away from into investments that I did invest in.
Right.
And basically that was someone saying, okay, and let's use the £1 million20investment thing. My business is worth $1 million today, and that's why I want to raise £200,000 for 20%, or whatever we'll work out about 18 minutes, whatever. And I would turn around and say, look at your numbers and everything else. I said, if you can hit these numbers, I totally agree with your valuation, but I honestly don't think you're going to hit those numbers. That's just, the growth line is too high, it's too aggressive, it's this, that, and the other. I think you're worth more like 600,000. So if we can come to agreement and say, look, I'll invest at 600,000, but if you do hit your targets that you say you're going to hit in blah blah blah, then you'll get those additional shares, or there's a way of rebalancing those books.
So you take 33% for 200 grand, basically.
Yeah.
But they need to be flexible and not come with a sort of idea that they're unwilling to negotiate.
Yeah, and to me, if you believe you've put those numbers forward, so you think that you can achieve them, what's the problem? Yeah, you say you can hit your targets.
Exactly.
That's why you've put them in a plan.
Okay,
that's what you've valued your business on, your future earnings. Well, what's the problem? But I don't think I think you're going to struggle to do that for this reason, this reason, this reason. But I will invest, but it'll be at this. But you hit that, you'll get those extra shares.
Brilliant. I think it's good advice to know that also when an investor's pushing back, it's not necessarily a no, that it's still in negotiation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right, we're just running.
Sorry. The one last thing I've done on that, Andy, and we've used it the other way in finding investments. So with Mice Book, we did a deck and we said, these are what we believe the targets to be. All right, we believe we can achieve those. However, we would do it this way. And if we do achieve them, the CEO will get this, this, and this. And in fact, we found it easy to get investors to invest, because it's kind of like saying, we're willing to put some skin in the game. The CEO is willing to put some skin in the game to,
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting idea as well. So
the model for you.
Make it more attractive, sweeten the deal, as they say.
Yeah.
So look, I just want to leave a little bit of time at the end for people to ask questions if there are any. But can you tell us before?
I can hang on for a bit as well if you want to. So, yeah, go on.
I've got stuff to do, man. No, I'm joking. Can you just tell us how we can stay in touch with Richard Waddington? Also, I know I actually saw you on CNN not so long ago. You were in an advert for about 3 weeks.
I was not an advert.
You were stood behind a pedestal, like in some.
Yeah, no, CNN. We did one of the first hybrid events with my EMA hat on, which is basically worked out of a hotel, but we had a studio and it was projected out to like 200-300 people with only 20 people in the room, and CNN wanted to record that, the future of live, and they did a whole program on it, which was really cool.
Yeah, I didn't end up watching it. I should have. I saw the advert so many times though. It was amazing. So obviously we can see you on TV, but where else can we find you? I know you do lots of speaking as well with agency events, but
Yeah, no, well, LinkedIn's the best thing, and if you want to link in. Do write me a little note, otherwise I'll say no. And then if anybody wants a one-on-one chat, then happy to do this. He's not talking about hundreds of people here. It's all online, but yeah.
Okay, brilliant. All right, so I'll open up the floor now. So anybody who wants to get in touch with Richard can contact him on LinkedIn, and I'll share his link to his profile afterwards. I think I have probably done before. So is there any questions about investments or chairman or board seats or that sort of thing that we've been discussing today? Anybody want
to have your other thing? I'm sure they have, Andy, through you, but does everybody know of like the Business Angel Network, UK Business Angels?
I will share that link as well.
Yeah. So UK Business Angels is the industry association for all of the angel investors and angel networks, which there's hundreds of around the country. They sit inside the BVCA, which is British Venture Capital Association, which is then your venture capitalists and private equity. But if you're looking for angel networks, all their angel networks are on their database and you can get them for free.
Brilliant. That's a good tip. Any questions in the room? Hi, Will.
Hi, Andy. Hi, Richard.
Hi.
It was interesting that last week Perry was talking to us about his idea for a virtual roll-up, and I just wondered whether you had any sort of particular views about that in relation to acquisitions, particularly obviously, as you know, the creative space.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely think there's opportunities or people. I know there are some private equity businesses looking at some of the biggest agencies for roll-ups, so bringing them together. I also know quite a few of the comms agencies in both UK and US that are talking and considering that sort of merger. But I like to think when you talk about a roll-up as well of balancing the shareholding, and that so the different executives in those groups. That was probably one of the mistakes I made in my journey was, okay, we go to that next level. Well, instead of one person then being the majority or a bigger shareholder than the others, you kind of start to then balance that out as part of the shareholding process. And Rick Stainton at Smile, they did that through their Rockpool investment that they took in. They bought a couple of companies, but they balanced, part of that process was balancing out the shareholding within the executives that stayed.
Thank you.
Yeah. But there's definitely, I mean, the thought there, Will, is, are you thinking of approaching a VC or PE fund to say, I've got an idea, this is who I am, this is what I'm looking to raise these funds to do this with you in partnership? Because that's, I think there's also people that will be very interested in that conversation.
Yeah, I guess it was just general thoughts about it as a sort of mechanism, regardless of where it gets the investment from. Yeah. I guess it's that idea of, particularly I think Perry's one was that, get everyone to the same point in a kind of virtual deal, or you set out those terms in advance, and then you execute it at the point when you're ready, is sort of 9 months, a year hence from making the agreement. So it doesn't have that kind of upfront cash. I guess you get everything in place before you actually exit, you actually complete.
Yeah, okay, I get you. Yeah, I mean, where I was, in fact, what sort of drove my MBO was that I was having a conversation. We were coming out of the 2007 market crashes. We'd grown doubled the business during that. I was straight away thinking the next strategy, the next level, the next wave. And I was talking to 3 other owners of agencies, and reasonable sized agencies. We were the biggest one, but about let's all come together and create an agency that can, take on the likes of Jack Morton, GPJ, and be a global footprint and stuff like that. And we were all having that conversation. We were all very interested. When I then took it to the table at my business with my board, my fellow directors didn't want to do that because they'd gone through this wave. They wanted to go organic growth and small acquisitions. It would have changed a lot in there. But of course, as I was the majority shareholder, and then my journey was about exiting in 5 years' time. That's kind of what drove that. But I think what you're saying that I had 3 really good guys lined up to do it, and then we didn't. which you know was a disappointment to me because I didn't fulfill my journey. But it's not at that point. It wasn't something I couldn't force with my fellow directors because they're also shareholders, and if they're not with you, they're not with you. That's the last thing you want. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for that, Will. Okay, any other questions? Thomas, Robert, you got any thoughts?
No, okay.
Okay.
Like I
Alright.
said, guys, if you know, sometimes you might want those more private questions, but please, happy to have a chat.
Brilliant. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for that. It was a really interesting chat, and I think a lot of people will get in touch with you directly afterwards, actually, Richard, because like you say, it's some of it's probably a little bit more private. I just wanted to say that next week we have a guy called Henry Ziff, and he is a broker. He does some agency deals as well. So he's going to talk about how brokers work and that sort of stuff. So completely different from this weekend and last week. So hopefully people will be here again. Thank you very much for everybody attending. Same time next week, Friday, 2 p.m.
The syndicate room was the name I was thinking about.
The syndicate room.
Syndicate room.
Somebody else has mentioned that to me.
I do some investments through there and go into their stuff, but they do EIS, SEIS investment. They're you know, if you're looking to raise funds, they're a good network to raise through.
Brilliant. Well, I'll let you have the last word there then. Okay, well, thank you everybody for attending this week, and I'll see you next week, 2 p.m. same time. And obviously there's the Tuesday drop for our video for your coaching lesson as well. Okay, thank you very much, guys. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank
you.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks.
Good weekend.